Hey guys, it's Matt. Welcome back to another episode of Midnight Reality, where I start, at least initially, to have an intelligent conversation that seems to come from a sound and reasonable individual, but then as time goes on, it slowly breaks down towards the insane and the comical. But it has a limit. This is Midnight Reality. It's not a voice in the night or the old-fashioned radio show that I haven't done in a while. So I did put it out that if somebody were to attempt a Midnight Reality poster, or something we can use for future shows. If you do it by hand, it's going to take precedence, of course, right? Bill over Stable Diffusion, Midnight Journey, Mid Journey, and Dale. Well, Matthew, he's given us this genius work in the past, which I made a whole video out of this. How your friends can see one thing, you can see another, interpret the exact same set of facts and circumstances in the same way, and have two completely different outcomes. We'll talk about that a little bit later. He'll send me something. We're talking about Rocky, right? Rocky being a giant analogy, a massive truth drop for the spiritual journey, whether that was intended by the writers or Sylvester Stallone. I don't believe that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck story, but whether it was intended or not, there's huge truth in Rocky. So Matthew will he'll send me this. Now, in a way, it's genius. In a way, it's rudimentary. But it's not from a little kid. He's Matthew, don't take this the wrong way. You can draw far, far better than I can. So here is his submission, which we're going to stick with for this episode of Midnight Reality. I hope this is a long presentation because there's a lot going on here. It's genius. Matthew, it's genius. Your drawings are rudimentary and genius. I would personally replace Madonna on the Rocks in the Louvre and put this up. It's way better than I can do. But I don't know what to make of this, but it is genius in its own way. I think on the far left bottom, it's like the Invisible Man, right? The famous, but it's almost my avatar, which is from the Kung Fu movie, The Five Deadly Venoms. My avatar on YouTube is the centipede fighter from the old Kung Fu classic, Five Deadly Venoms. It's almost like he's mixed them together. Okay, thank you, Matthew. A ton of time was put into this. He actually sent me progress updates. We're sticking with it for the entire length of this presentation. Okay, guys, we'll start with this. Because it has gotten so far out of hand, reality has debased to a level that I couldn't possibly imagine 5 to 10 years ago. Just have to do 5 minutes or less on the woke stuff. I know we've talked about it a lot, but it keeps coming and coming and coming. It's just mind-boggling. It's being sent to me. I don't watch the news. I know this is a gigantic story all over the country, especially in conservative circles or Trump supporters. You have comedians going into Target now. And Greg sent me a video. They're putting on the Matt, this is not Midnight Reality. It's gonna evolve into like an old-fashioned radio show. If it does, it does. Okay, but look at the drawing we're basing the presentation from. It might just naturally, the drawing will take this presentation where the drawing once. People are going into Target as a joke, putting on their one-piece bathing suits. The bathing suits have special, you could just say, for the bot's perspective, kangaroo pouches. That's the way they should have marketed it. Kangaroo pouches for men. 30 seconds or less, because I know many of you have thrown your TV out and absorbed absolutely no media. The big thing this week is Target stores, which is like Walmart in the United States. It was Bud Light the last 2 months, and the last 3 weeks it was the Rainbow Ford Raptor pickup truck. But these comedians now, these men are going in putting on the one-piece. They're one-piece bathing suits in Target, a whole section, women's, that from our perspective, but they're for men who have made a certain choice, like a lifestyle choice. Got to be kind of hobo here. We'll just say Sesame Street sponsored by the big letter T, certain choice, and there's a kangaroo pouch. That's not what they brand it as, but I'm rebranding it that. They can use that if they like on their one-piece bathing suits for men, a kangaroo pouch, and then the comedians going in, walking around the store with a big bulge. It's getting completely out of control. A minute and a half or so for anybody new. Have to go over the basics here. There's all different levels here. Everything happening, of course, is by design. Target's not trying to find a new customer base. Target's not trying to find a new way to bring in profitability. Every time this happens, the company knows the backlash is coming. It wants, the not milk wants the backlash. Nobody, the Trump supporters, the QAnon people, the conservatives that are all upset about this, even the comedians, they just think it's just bad marketing. And they just will do anything to stick to their woke values. It's all done to create the backlash. Any $1 billion here or $8 billion lost by Bud and Bud Light, AM, InBev, any billion lost over here, backlash against Target stores, backlash against Ford Motor Company. It's all part of the plan. It's exactly what they want. And it's playing out perfectly from their perspective. And if anybody's screaming first grade truthers, I can hear you. Matt, no company wants to lose $5 billion. You're a first grade truther. You don't understand how things work. These companies that apparently took this hit because they made bad choices, sure, they didn't lose anything. Okay, if Bud Light or AB InBev complains to the dark reality or those sitting around the creepy table, we lost $4 billion more than we expected. This was not in the plan. I mean, who knows how it goes down? It doesn't go down as rudimentary as people talking around the table. There's millions of things here we don't understand. But nobody's taking a risk at Budweiser. If they go out of business, that will be part of the plan. If Disney goes out of business, that will all be part of the plan. It won't be unexpected. If a representative of AB InBev has a seat at the creepy table because they've been the focus in this Bud Light, Dylan Mulvaney, if anybody doesn't know, they got another tea, very flamboyant to market Bud Light, and the backlash is, hundreds of millions of people have said they'll never buy Bud Light again, all by design. So a representative from AB InBev leans timidly, very quietly and timidly into the creepy table into discussion. Can I speak? Who are you? Who are you? I'm a representative of AB InBev. See, the problem is, let him speak. Oh, sorry. We lost $4 billion more than what was in the plan. It's much worse for us. What? Shut up. You've already been made whole. Our representatives through Fed channels have already funded your account, and your entire executive team has been made rich. Now shut up and go away and let the demons continue their discussion. Does it happen just like that? Probably not. But that's basically what happens. We don't need to know. We'll never know. But even Greg, my buddy Greg, who I've bounced truth stuff off for I don't know how many years now, he's watching too much news. He's even falling for it a bit, Greg, if you're listening, where he'd be like, Matt, okay, yeah, I see. He would say to me, it's not my first rodeo. I mean, I see what's happening here as well as you do, but this is much worse for Bud Light than they expected. Like, it's just spiraling out of control and they had no idea what would happen. And I'm always like, no. Let's just say it actually is spiraling out of control more than they expected. Then they're benefiting. They're thrilled with it. Where Greg would be like, now they're worried. No, they're not worried at all. They're thrilled with it. In 2 seconds, with a few pushes of a button on a keyboard, how many ever billions can be sent back to AB InBev in 1 second? There's never a money issue. That's the one thing about this world. There's never a budget issue. There's never a money issue. They can create $1 trillion a second with one keyboard. What I've been thinking about the last week or so is, what do the employees think at these companies? Now, for the most part, they're on the download. There's this weird thing going on with our friends and family. Like my friend Tony, you just can't see what's right in front of his face. And we call it the download, call it the frequency. They're tuned to the radio station. We've talked about that. But what's good? They're not all completely at the Donald Sutherland body snatch stage, right? There's still some pretty regular people. Disney has hundreds of thousands of employees, AB InBev, hundreds of thousands, whatever they have. It's thousands and tens of thousands. And there's different types of people. Some are more real than others. Some could be NPCs. We don't know if that really exists. But there's thousands that must be going, like, what are, quote, we doing if you worked for the company? Like Disney employees, I think about for some reason more than any other. Just one woke fail, one failure, another failure in a TV series, destruction of Star Wars, Book of Boba Fett, one of the worst series of all time, Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of the worst series of all time, and now it's Indiana Jones. Looks like it's going to be just as bad. Another destruction of a beloved character. Tens of thousands of people at Disney going, what do they say to each other at lunch? Like, that's what and it doesn't matter. Matt, do we need to know that for our spiritual journey? No, that's 2 sentences. We have that figured out. We would just ponder this stuff for fun. at this point. But what are they thinking? They can't be sitting at over the lunch table saying, "Boy, this Indiana Jones movie, we got a pre-screening because we're an employee. It's so wonderful." And they must know it sucks. Or thousands at least aren't completely on the radio station. What are they thinking? What are even the Bud Light thing saying? Well, why would the executive marketing team use this person? Go look at pictures of Dylan or whatever. I mean, nobody would ever decide to. That's why we know it's all part of the games that the Not Milk is playing. But what do the employees think? Like, why would they do that? Like the employees at Ford Motor Company. Like that's some, there's still some old school there. Their father worked in the plants in Michigan. This is a tough group. But I know that's gone away and it's overseas now. But that element is still there's traces of it at Ford. And that's still thousands and thousands of employees going at lunch. Like, they're saying this, why would we make a Raptor pickup truck that's rainbow color to market it to? Why would we even do this? And then here comes didn't they see what just happened to Bud Light? Here comes the backlash. I'm thrilled and fascinated by what do the employees think. And this I don't know. I mean, if somebody could come to me probably pretty easily and say, "Matt, I work in one of these companies, and I'm one of the few that hasn't been body snatched. I'm one of the few that made it to the end of the movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They're all on the frequency. It's a complete madness." I don't know, but I'd love to hear from somebody that's actually inside one of these companies where this big controversy is brewing. Last part before we move on. Why are they doing this? Why is each company stepping forward and willingly taking the hit, knowing this backlash and the boycott of their products will be coming along with the backlash? Guys, I almost refuse to try to put real mental effort into this, so I don't have the final answers. I don't care to know the final answers. I see the same repeating themes, though. Camps. The dark reality, all it does all day long is try to divide people into camps. So there will be, again, in Greg's family, somebody's nephew was screaming at Greg's dad saying that no, a five-year-old kid should not be able to decide if one day it wants to be a you-know-what and another day it wants to. Then a camp is formed, a division, a hatred amongst people, that it just works to do that all day long. It knows that a whole section of the U.S. is going to take a side on this issue, and you would wonder, well, who's taking the other side, that the kangaroo pouch should be in the, is there, well, okay, I hear you. It doesn't seem to be, other than the real radicals that just run up and down Market Street in San Francisco. Other than certain groups, there's not going to be a giant group defending that, Target should be marketing pouch hangers in the front of the store next to the children's stuff. And Greg says even in the Target, he's seen it. They have for kids, almost for babies, like a rainbow, and I mean, just really sick stuff. So the answer could potentially be pretty simple. It is a louche monster. It needs the emotional energy and the negative energy and emotion of real generator beings. Maybe it's this simple. Maybe it is like a heroin addict. And it needs more. The master egregore, it's many egregores. If by that notion, though, if that's the case, then it has to keep upping the ante. It has to keep getting crazier and crazier. Can it survive if the pendulum swings back to the other side? It creates more controversy. In the short term, it harvests louche. Any sort of friction, any sort of camp that can create controversy, it ultimately wins or feeds from. But how much more can it keep pushing the edge of the envelope? Whatever, I learned that from Top Gun. I don't know what that means. So possibility number one, it's an energy addict, and it has to keep playing this stuff out, and it will get worse. It's possible to believe it will get worse. Do we sense it's going to get better or worse in this regard, right? At least in the short run, over the next year or two, at least until the next eclipse, whatever that means to them. I think it's going to get worse. The other possibility is all this type of movement would be needed to revitalize Trump. I mean, if they're going to bring that actor back and he's going to play that script out again, you need to energize or generate this space, and Trump will take the podiums and talk about the woke and all that. I mean, that is first grade stuff. Matt, surely there's more complicated explanations than that. There are. Okay, but let's just move on. Who cares? As we've talked about, at this point, unless you're new here, it only really matters to understand reality or what's happening if it can help in any way you understand yourself or your own goals and journey here. Oh, that's not always going to happen. I mean, a lot of what we just talked about, that don't analyzing Bud Light's dilemma, that doesn't help my spiritual journey yet. Okay, we do return to that from time to time. Just in general, if you're going to spend serious time on it, maybe just kicking your feet up with some Pabst Blue Ribbons and your Peter Stuyvesants and listening to me for fun. But if you really are going to put effort and investment into it, make sure in some way it translates into you knowing something about yourself. And in this, taking it a step further in this way, it does. So I've screamed this for many years now. And if there were three things I could tell a first grade truther, that say there's somebody's getting on a subway in New York and the subway was rolling out and the doors were closed, and I could just yell three things. And one of the things to stress would be, I'd say, always back up as far as you can and look down on it, and then back up farther. Always, when you think you have the whole picture, don't believe you have the whole picture. Go back another 100,000 feet and look down, and then try to keep going back to look down. We know for sure if you're too close to it. Greg, my buddy, starting to watch a little news, Fox News here and there about what's happening at Target and Bud Light. And I can see gets too close to it, and it skews his understanding of what the entire not milk is up to. And who's more skilled in terms of understanding the not milk than Greg? If you see what I'm saying, you don't know him, but you understand the type of person we're talking about here. And even he is getting sucked in a little bit or watching a little too much news, and if his perceptions can be altered a bit. Matt, how you know you're right? Okay, I hear you. I don't know you got answer. No, I don't. Matt, don't. This midnight reality. Don't do it, man. You seem same and normal. So don't. Sorry. If it can happen to Greg, it can happen to any of us. So always go back. Then eventually you've gone back far enough where it just becomes clear, the entire picture of what is it out to do to me, what does it do to benefit itself at my expense or in taking my energy, the entire big picture. Then you think, okay, I don't really need to go back any farther, but it will, without you knowing, it will suck you back in like gravity, and you're closer to it. And it's like, whoa, then you need to push back to go back to the level that you were at. Now, we have the general conclusions from the highest level. Okay, but what are some of the real oddball? If you just go back even farther and just press your face up against the glass or whatever, the dome I don't get into all that. We don't know exactly what this reality system is. It's very fluid. I don't care to analyze no shape. Okay, but you go back even far. Then weird stuff starts to come to me, and you don't come to midnight reality for me to play it safe. And if I didn't really believe this was a possibility, 75%, I wouldn't be mentioning it now. Many of you will resonate with this. Others will think it's insane. But it's almost like this reality has been designed for me. No, I don't believe in this solipsism. I'm the only one here. No, it could be a limited solipsism. There could be a very small number of real people here in the thousands or tens of thousands, whatever it might be. Or there could be 1 billion real people here. It's still possible for the individual reality to be playing out actually for each individual, which is just impossible to fathom. So I'm thinking, if you go back all the way, which I've done many times as far as I can possibly go, what are the chances that the reality, let's say when I was born and as I grew up, the presentation of it seemed we've talked about this before, and you'll understand where I'm taking this, so 1 minute or less. Its presentation was legitimate, even though it still was delivering kind of the same lies and deception. The whole reason for the Vietnam War, cooked up, bogus, Gulf of Tonkin, set up. But its presentation, it was more believable. It was more legitimate. It was Walter Cronkite out there, and it wasn't just that we were fooled. That's what people will say, Matt, you were fooled back then. So it seemed, no, look at Target stores today. Look at Bud Light. And no, it's not that it was always this way, and now we can see. It's both. We can see now, but it has upped its Richter scale of clown show, if that even makes sense. Its Richter scale of clown show. The Richter scale, an 8 earthquake ain't just 2 more than a 6. It's 100 times more than a 6. It's a 10 scale, 10 to the 10. And then it's one more step up would be an earthquake 1,000 times more. Its clown show works the same way. This stuff didn't exist, this insanity in the 70s and 80s and 90s. So it's both. We can see more, but it's upped its clown show. Richter scale. Matt, you don't need to draw me a sketch of that device, my man. We're good. But if you really want to. So it's both. So I'm thinking, what are the chances that I'm born in the exact right time where a reality designed for me for my wake up, a reality that's here to facilitate my wake up, really legitimate in the 70s. The news seemed real, and then the presentation was serious and Walter Cronkite. And then just where the wake up happens, and as the wake up happens, which is the catalyst was the 7-Eleven job application, then it just becomes clown show, Richter scale's clown show, to the 10, to the 100th power. It's almost like, I say, this reality is like designed to wake me up. I guess we have talked about it in the past with the truck and tractor pull example, where at first the pickup truck in the mud is pulling the weight, but the weight is sliding along a bar, a beam, whatever it is, a 3-ton or 4-ton weight. And it's as it gets closer to the pickup truck in the mud, the leverage goes down and the pickup truck just stops. The reality is facilitating wake up in me, but in many of us as well. But just from my perspective, I think, what are the chances that I happen to be born in the exact perfect time where I could look back and see, because I'm in my early 50s, a reality that still was deception, still was lies, still was cheating, still was cronyism, still was fake money, but its presentation was very legitimate. For, 30 some years, I'm proud to be an American where at least I can get Bud Light. I did all that patriotic stuff. Then it just starts to break down, and it's like a reality designed for me to facilitate my wake up, so I don't want to ever come back. It's like the reality itself is trying to drive me and real people away, saying we're going to make this so bad. You say you have to cut ties and cut attachments and don't look back. At reality, that's about cutting ties and attachments, and don't covet it. That might facilitate a reincarnation, or David Icke's being shed out the back of Saturn into the moon matrix. But as it's helping me because there's nothing that appeals to